Who's represent?
Voice from the sky.
Oh, I'm warning you. This is being
This is your last
recorded.
warning.
Okay, I'm gonna let the public in.
All right, all right. Why don't you let him in and then I'll call meeting to order.
Perfect. Looks like everybody is in.
Everybody in?
Everybody's in.
Okay. And since we have everybody logged into our Zoom meeting and our actual in-person meeting for our zoning board of appeals for this February 10th meeting, I would like to call the meeting to order and ask Cindy for a roll call.
Bauk,
Here?
Kubashak,
Here?
McPollin,
Here,
and Hunriser, Zerfus, Bont, and Muir have all been excused.
Okay. Item number 2 on our agenda this evening is agenda changes. And I'll ask either one of you if you have any agenda changes. No?
I have a comment.
So do I, but you go first.
First meeting of the year, our first regular meeting of the year. We usually have election of officers,
That was my comment.
but with so many people not here, I thought it would be better if we.
That was
wait.
exactly
So with
my
that-
thought. Let's wait. I had down here, more members. I think it's not fair to, fair to all the members to do it with this, with a, a minimum. So if you don't mind, I just wanted to make sure that was on the records that we would hold that till we have.
Does it require a motion to postpone?
A motion to approve the agenda as submitted.
No, I think you're talking about
Postpone
the
the
election
the
of
officers.
Okay.
Okay, okay. I just wanted to see if that was, I want to make sure we understood. Okay, so then I do want to ask for a motion to approve the agenda
so
tonight.
moved.
Second.
Proposed and second by Bao. Now, item number 3 is approval of the minutes from our December 9th, 2021 ZBA meeting, which is included in our packet in front of us. I've had a chance to look these over and they look fairly complete. Anybody have any comments on them?
I do not.
I don't
Kate,
either.
you're
Nope,
okay?
I'm good.
All right. Then I will ask for a motion to approve the minutes from the December 9th, 2021 ZBA meeting, if I can.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. That takes care of the minutes and item 3. Okay, that moves us on our agenda to new business. This evening, we have 2 items under new business. Just to read them through, first item is 143 Park Street, which is 2 docks, a public hearing interpretation or a variance request. And item B, 2021 annual report under new business. So at that point in time, I guess we should move on to item A, which is the application for 143 Park Street, 2 docks and public hearing. And I guess I want to call the, after I call the hearing to order, I want to have the chairman, Cindy, if you could give us a summary of your zoning administrator's overview of the application.
Are you opening the public hearing?
I did, yes.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Sorry, I have to take a lot of notes. Okay, so we have the public hearing open. This application is for 2 docks at 143 Park Street. Our zoning ordinance says you may have 1 dock per parcel. And that's what started or initiated the idea that we might need a interpretation. I contacted legal several times. The first question I asked him, is this a use variance or a non-use variance? And he wanted to think about that for a little bit, but then he decided that it could be either one. So I started to write the memo and the packet, prepare the packet. And then he called back later and said, no, now that we found out that Myrtle Lane has been vacated, it's a non-use variance, a dimensional variance, because docks are a permitted accessory use, and it's just the number of docks that's in question. So I think I included all of that in your email today. Was there any questions about that long and confusing email?
No?
No,
Okay.
no.
So we're processing this tonight as a non-use variance for 2 docks where the zoning ordinance allows for 1.
Yes.
And we're using our regular standards for
For a dimensional,
no variance, yes. And I did print the answers that the applicant provided me today on your desk. And I think I sent them to you as well, but they're
they're
a page
in,
with a lot of printing on it.
Yes.
these are it here, the highlighted or,
Nope, that's
That's your-
part of the pack.
This one, Bob.
oh, that one over there. Okay. I wasn't sure where it was. Got it. Okay. Okay. So let's move. Is that anything else you have to add?
Have anything else to add?
Nothing else to add?
Well, I should say that this originated with me getting an application from the Eagle saying that they wanted to put in a second dock, which I replied to Eagle. They can't put in a second dock, that would require a variance. And then that got communicated to the applicant. And
That's how
started.
it became
Yep.
an issue or a question. Okay, thank you. That's good to know. All right, then, so if we move down through our public hearing, our next item would be to have the applicant do a presentation of anyone that would be, I believe, logged in, Cindy, that you would want to have speak and present their case and review it with us.
Yes, we have Steve, who is the representative of Alvin Nasser.
Steve, is it, you said?
Steve,
Mhm.
so Steve, if you could unmute yourself.
Is he up there?
There we go. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So essentially, what AJ is looking for is to install the second dock next to, next to his other boat dock with a boat lift. And essentially, there was 2 parcels there previously. And so therefore, we were hoping that we could go ahead and put the second dock in. Also, AJ has a concern about washing his boats and getting to the other side of his boats. And given Saugatuck and the boating community, he's kind of geared for that. And that's what the lakeshore is used for mostly. It also appears that, neighbors also have a couple of docks in the area. And we just wanted to bring this to you guys to see if it was a possibility, if we could install another dock for AJ.
All right. Let's see, and then I believe I'm going to say as long as we got you on here, Steve, is there any questions that we may have of Steve right now, or do we want to hold any of those for later at this point and just move along?
I'm assuming that their answer to the 4 standards is what's
What we should
submitted
look
to
at?
Cindy
We should-
today.
Yeah, we should review. So that's what I was thinking. So, okay. So anything else, Steve, that you want to add? If not, then we'll have questions and come back to you.
Okay, yeah, I'd say that's it. I'd say if we review the application, that really kind of spells everything out as well. And then, yeah, I'll just stand by here and be ready for questions.
All right, that'll work for us. All right. So next thing would be any public comment regarding this application. And since we're no one in the audience, I can't allow anybody in the audience to speak other than the board members. So that means that Cindy, if we have anyone that is on digital Zoom, that Cindy could, if you could raise your hand or let Cindy let you in and speak if you'd like to.
I do have some audience members, but I don't see any hands raised. If you want to unmute yourself and let us know if you'd like to speak, we'll give you a couple minutes to
In
get
case they
that.
don't know how to, physically raise their hand or click raise my hand or, yeah. Okay,
I don't see anyone.
I don't see any hands raised on that part either.
No,
Okay.
I guess there's no public comment.
All right. All right. So what we will do is we will move along after item D, that there no public comments at this time, or they can always come back later at the end of the meeting if they want to. So at that point, we don't have any written or supporting or opposing. Do we have any documentation on that, Cindy?
We have no written comments.
No written, okay. So I guess that would be between our public hearing or a public in-person or on Zoom and any written and correspondence. At this point in time, we do not have anything to review. So we will go to our portion of closing the meeting to the zoning board members. So we can have our deliberation and discussions. And if we have any questions, we'll come back to everybody on that.
I would just want to add one thing.
Mhm.
We do not have a full board tonight. We have 3 members, the minimum number for a quorum. And for any variance to be granted, it will have to be unanimous, that all of us would have to vote the same for a variance. A split vote is a denial.
Yep, right. Thanks for the reminder on that. Okay. Boy, let's kick this off. Kate, you got any first opinions or comments? Or let me go back and say that we have received I believe some new information on the applicant's responses that we didn't have in our earlier correspondence. And I guess, would we like to read these or just take a minute to have you guys reviewed them? You feel any comments?
I have the gist, but I do have a question before we would even get into that.
Okay,
If, there have been a lot of different details thrown around the past week or so, 2 weeks. I guess my question is it 1 lot or 2 parcels?
It
Because
is-
the ordinance reads 1 dock per residential lot or parcel.
It is 2 separate parcels. There, one is 143 Park, and it has parcel number 005. And the other parcel is 144 Park, and it is 008 parcel number. So they're 2 separate parcels, but as we consider that, we can consider two abutting lots as a single lot if they're non-conforming, and it appears that this lot, for various reasons, could never be split.
Right.
One because of the structures,
Mhm.
and the other one would cause the parcel along the lake to be landlocked and not have any
sure.
access to the street. So it's not a splittable parcel. So it can be considered as one lot.
And what is the size of the lot if you put the two
The
parcels? together?
entire lot as one is about 19,500 square feet.
And I think we determined it was around, basically 69 feet. Is that
Yes,
the frontage on the water is 69 feet? That
Yes.
was finally narrowed, dialed in, I should say, right?
yeah. I think the applicant filled out the application form of 47 and 114. I think he got those numbers from the original plat,
Mm.
because he submitted a copy of that as well, and I can't find anywhere else that those numbers could have come from. But he must have had his special magnifying glasses to read those little tiny numbers.
Oh, it is 45 on Park Street. Oh, no, there's another 20. Well,
There's
anyway,
another 20,
doesn't- Yeah. I see that.
Yeah, because
Um,
Lakeview Court was vacated.
So just to clarify, the applicant does need a variance because it's one lot.
Yes,
And that's what our
Well, let me
ordinance.
stay with that same thought for a minute. As I read the ordinance, it says one dock per lot,
Mhm.
per residential lot. But it says that in the waterfront construction section. So it would imply that one waterfront lot gets a dock. It doesn't matter how many non-waterfront lots you own.
I would hope not.
Yeah,
When you
if
think
you would
about
think
it.
not,
I was
right?
thinking if I have a lot on the hill
We-
and one in the.
A lot of them on the hill that way.
Yeah.
Because if you build a dock on a lot that is not waterfront, that's called a deck. That's not a lot, a dock. So it really is a moot point
Either way,
either way.
I agree.
So this only applies to waterfront lots.
Yeah.
And the applicant has a legal, either non-conforming or conforming, I think it's a legal conforming waterfront lot.
Mhm.
One.
One,
Yeah.
Yeah.
well,
yeah, I believe that's,
Spent a lot of time thinking.
There-
about
if there
that
was
one.
if there was, if I don't know, I think I'm going to say this correct, but if there was some kind of a interpretation of what's been presented, there, it is one waterfront lot.
Mhm.
It's the way
Yeah.
we see it, is that.
and legal concurs with that.
And yeah, legal agrees with that. So I mean, we,
no matter how
We-
you.
any way you look at it.
Yeah.
So, okay, well, so based on the review of, I think we need to, of course, look at the applicant's concerns and reasons.
Mhm.
We also want to take into consideration, there's, anything that the neighbors, there's pictures of things that go on around the neighborhood, and there's always reasons or situations that they may appear to look differently, and there's things that happen in the past that, whether they were right, wrong, or whatever, so we have to, make all that into consideration. So, but what is before us is what's being requested, what they really feel is justification or not of meeting our standards. So, I would think we probably ought to just maybe go through the standards, read what they have some discussion, and go on from there. Is that okay?
Mhm.
Do we want to go off of their final submission here? Basically it is, let me get back to, they didn't use, let me see if I'm getting myself straight here. It doesn't start with, so our number one for a non-use is, the strict compliance with the area setbacks. And this one starts, if I've got it right, this starts with a permitted use, please, is that
I
that's a
think,
use one?
I think that the applicant for his first standard was answering the question for a use
So
variance.
that's the way, that's what this starts to say. This is
Yeah,
a use variance.
But then it goes on to get the correct standards for the rest of the standards, but. So I did put them up here on the screen as well.
Okay,
So can you point us to what how the applicant answered number one?
yeah,
Can we say?
that,
do
that's
it
a
that
good way to
way?
put it. Can you point us to how they have?
So you're saying that part of his first answer addressed it?
Yes, the first answer, he answered the question for a use variance, but he does touch on some of the facets of the dimensional variance as well. The unique circumstances of the applicant, he talks about maintenance of boats and utilizing the existing dock is not possible. And prevents the property from being utilized to its fullest extent. So So he doesn't really point out any setbacks, but it is kind of a density issue because it's two docks instead of one dock. So that's why legal went with a use variant, that the non-use variance or the dimensional variance, because the docks are allowed, but only one.
Okay. So strict compliance would unreasonably prevent the owner from using the property for a permitted purpose. I would say that is not true, right? The permitted purpose is one dock.
It's recreational boat docking for the property owner and their immediate family is the allowed use.
One dock, which he
And one
has.
dock is allowed and one dock and having two docks, having one dock does not prevent that use.
Right. He can use the property for a permitted purpose,
Yes,
keeping his boat. Yeah,
correct. I mean, yeah, as there's no
As
there's no
allowed.
hindrance to him not having a dock at all. I mean, it's not like
Right.
that. It's not to go to that far and say you can't have a dock at all, or he doesn't have a dock and there's a reason for that. He would like to have, there's no reason.
right.
and as far as maintenance of the boat, you can still do maintenance of the boat. You can do what you can do at your dock. You might have to use a marina the way the other boat owners in town do.
Yeah.
But maintenance of the boat can still be done if that is a major consideration.
Yeah, and traditionally, customarily, boaters have access to one side of their boat and not the other. I mean, that's just how docks work.
That's right.
So it's not as though.
That's why we anchor out and wash our boats.
Right. Or pull up at the beach there. So it's not an unusual burden in this case,
No.
if,
And it
If it
does
was-
not prevent the use for a permitted purpose. And it doesn't render conformity unnecessarily burdensome.
right.
Now, I believe there's a lift in that dock.
Mhm.
I believe, actually, there's a proposed lift, second lift, it looks like. For if they were to add a dock, it looks like there would be two lifts.
Mhm.
So in general, it allows them to wash his side on one boat, but not the other,
Right, true.
which the existing dock, I believe, is conforming. So, okay,
And even if the applicant thought he wasn't going to use the second dock for a second boat, obviously, nothing would prevent a future
And
owner from
maintenance, yeah.
doing so. So that is kind of a moot point.
yeah. Okay, so yeah, so number one seems to not restrict or strict compliance would not restrict them from unnecessarily burdensome.
Mhm.
How about number two, Jim?
Okay. The criteria is explain how the plight of the owner is due to unique circumstances of the property and not to general neighborhood conditions. The applicant has stated the unique circumstances that the applicant faces are physical restrictions, a back impairment, that prevent normal everyday life. In order to maintain proposed boat lift and boats utilizing the lift, access on both sides is necessary. While access via dinghy or kayak would be feasible and prudent for most property owners, this method of access is not safely possible for the applicant. The proposed access dock is narrower than the main existing dock as its core function is maintenance access. And while all that may well be true, and we assume that it is, and believe me, I understand physical back impairment. The requirement is to the unique circumstances of the property.
Right.
And the circumstances of the applicant are not to be considered because if that property is sold, that applicant and those restrictions are no longer there. So we have to restrict our ruling to the unique circumstances of the property. And in this case, there are no apparent unique restrictions of the property.
Mhm.
It's similar to most of the other properties in that same area. So I would say that standard is not met.
I would agree.
Yeah, I think I would too. As long as the laws is the way it is.
Mhm.
Let me do the number 3. Now I'm reading off of the dimensional variance. So this
I
is the
think-
use is different. So
I think
he
Jim just did.
He
number
did,
three,
but it's
Because it was out of order.
it was out of
on the
order, but it's actually, it has to deal with this. Back to the dimensional, it basically, it reads, explain how the variance would do substantial justice to the owner as well as other property owners in the district.
Hmm.
Or whether a lesser relaxation would give substantial relief to be more consistent in justice to others. So, so let's go back to that if we
Yeah.
don't mind.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
That's all right. I was trying to catch up there between these two,
Yep.
and by the time I caught up, you're into it.
I answered number 3.
That's all right. Well, actually, number three on here is, yeah,
Two.
yeah, is a little different than, but anyway, it's similar, but yeah. It's just the wrong request.
Mhm.
So, let's continue back, consider it number 2 on dimensional to be official, that substantial justice to the owner and the other property in the district, or whether a lesser relaxation would give substantial relief to be more consistent with justice to the others. I don't know that, what I said earlier, there are some properties that have a few waterfront lots, a couple of waterfront lots that may have 2 docks, but they're 2 waterfront lots, or it
Mhm.
might be debatable whether they're taxed that way or how they were originally developed.
Mhm.
And I don't see how, in my opinion, how this would give any, a lesser relaxation would give us, would be consistent with others. No, it's not really consistent. If you go down there, it's,
I
for
agree.
the most part, it's 1 dock per lot.
Yes. And, while it points out too, when there's evidence that there's a third one to the north as well that has more than 1 dock. Number one, we don't know if those people ever applied for a permit.
Right.
And did it legally, or did they just flout the law and say, I'm going to put in 2 docks?
That's right.
So using them as an example here. Now, it could also be that they were grandfathered.
Yep.
That could be. We haven't investigated that. So either they're grandfathered and they're legal, or they could be illegal. But to justify a second dock on this property because other people have not followed the zoning laws and the zoning didn't get enforced against them for some reason, would be to reward them for non-compliance and to penalize the vast majority of the property owners in that area who have followed the rules and have 1 dock.
Yeah,
So
I agree.
I agree.
it's a lot like saying, officer, those other people were speeding, so I should be able to.
Yeah, yeah. All right, so then number 3, if we're all on the same page, starts with explain how,
Yes.
not please explain.
Right. Number 4. Yeah, whatever number it is.
So explain how the plight of the owner is due to the unique circumstances.
nope. I think
That's
that's
the
the one
one
you.
that-
I did that one.
Yeah.
Well, you did it. I'm just reading it.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go
I'm
ahead.
reading it properly. I'm not
Okay,
picking on
please
you.
do. Go
You
ahead.
read it off the non-use and it's similar. Explain how that the plight of the owner is due to unique circumstances of the property and not to general neighborhood conditions. So, similar, but about the same. Yes, we did go through that one.
Mhm.
It's just, it's a very similar one to a use for a dimensional. It has asked the same questions. And I believe we would come to the same answer. So,
Yes.
Number 4, who wants to try and see if they're on the right one?
Not me.
I'll do it. Explain how the problem is not self-created or based on personal financial circumstances.
I'm still learning about these standards, but I assume self-created would apply here, right? I mean, it's
No.
because it's not a problem unless you want a second dog.
Well,
Or what is the
basically,
problem?
it
How do
is
you-
self-created.
Yes,
It is self-created.
it is, yes.
Because is the problem defined as I'd like a second dot? Is that the actual,
Yes, if we
Problem, okay.
define it that way, then it's self-created.
Yeah.
I'm not,
And it is not based on personal financial circumstances.
no.
Yeah, I mean, and for down the road purpose, I mean, it's a lot of times this one will meet some that others don't,
Mhm,
quite often it's a situation where nature delivered this problem
Sure.
and it's not really financial or created that by the applicant,
Sure.
So it quite often is met pretty easily with some of our requests.
I can see
And this
that.
one, it's not, it is to me, it's self-created request,
Mhm.
it's, I'd like more.
Yeah.
Right.
And I would like to add the comment that we have just reviewed the standards for a non-use variance. In the original package, the applicant filed for both a use and a non-use. And if we had reviewed this package for a use variance, our answers would have been the same.
Yes.
And I know that there was a lot of discussion early on with this, and the applicant has provided at one time, more, if this is more on her decision, how the lot was set up and, a lot of background with the lots and all that. So that was fine. But it wasn't really where it ended up. So for us, so
Mhm.
I think we're better off sticking with our dimensional and our standards here.
Mhm.
Is there anything that the two of you and myself have any more concerns or questions for the applicant on, or, I believe that based on our review, you have to meet all the standards in order to go to a motion. We didn't see it meeting in our review, any of the 4 standards.
Mhm.
Yep.
So I'm just asking, I think we're clear on that from my finding. I don't know if there was any further questions you might want to add or any feelings. No?
No.
Okay. Well, then at that point in time, I would ask for a motion for the application here at 143 Park Street to either approve or deny based on our findings after reviewing the standards of a dimensional variance. Either one of you do it or try it, or
We don't have a sample motion here, do we?
No, but it's okay. I move that the application for a variance to allow 2 docks at 143 Park Street be denied based upon our assessment of the findings of fact covering the 4 standards that are required to grant a variance in this case, and that the findings of fact be included in this report.
Support.
Okay, so we have a motion by Bout and a support by McPolin. Is there any discussion beyond, well, you guys, probably not any discussion beyond that? I mean, we asked that earlier and I didn't know, beyond the motion.
I'm curious, this little side note, why we don't look at frontage in granting a dock.
Why, say it again, why what?
We don't look at frontage.
Because the standard is per residential lot.
I know, but I mean, should that be looked at or changed?
Why?
Or, I don't, well,
This is the only request we've ever had.
okay.
Well,
Fair enough.
quite a long time, yeah,
And that answers my question.
yeah. How big of a burden is it, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's all I had.
Cindy, before we go to a vote, do you have it written down? Are you okay?
I have everything written.
Do you
down.
want to just maybe give it back briefly to us so we
I'll
feel?
give it back very briefly. Standard number 1 was not met because it was not an issue with the property. It was an issue with the person. The variance runs with the land, not with the person. Standard number 3, once again, it's not an issue with the property. Number 2, some of the adjoining properties that have more than one dock may have more than one waterfront lot,
Or maybe grandfathered.
or maybe
Or
grandfather.
grandfather.
And in any event,
And number
Won't affect
4,
our
it is
decision.
self-created because it's just a want of the applicant, not a problem with the property.
Could we, in number 2, work in, is that the one where we're talking about neighbors with many docks?
Mhm.
Work in that, and some of them may just plain be in violation of the standard.
Yeah, that was another comment you had that.
Got it.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we're okay with the motion, second, third, then I will ask you to call for vote. I'll call for vote of the motion.
So the motion is to deny based on the findings of fact to be incorporated herein. And I will go ahead and call the roll. Out,
Yes?
Wasak,
Actually, I should go last
okay,
personally, as chair,
McFarland.
Yes,
full
and
rank,
that's right.
Wasak.
yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Okay. All right, so item B on new business is a annual report. 2021 annual report. Did you want to go over that? You included it, you'd sent it
It's in the packet.
in the, I know, yeah, in the packet. Do we need to review it? I mean, I've seen it, but I didn't know if we need to read it or,
I have it on the council agenda for them to accept the report on Monday.
right?
So we don't need to read it. We just need to, I need you to check it to make, review it to make sure
Yeah.
it's accurate and I didn't miss anything.
I did look it over. I mean, it's the annual report of items of activity in front of the ZBA, right?
Right. And-
Not your, as many things you had, yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't have any
I had no
concern
problems
about it.
with it.
I don't know. So,
So I just need a motion to accept the annual report as written to be submitted to the city council.
I'll make the motion to accept the annual report as submitted to be presented to council for approval
I'll second.
of 2021.
That can go voice vote.
Pardon?
That can be a voice vote.
Oh, yeah?
Mhm.
Okay. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passed. Number 5, unfinished business, none. Communications? None was added. Public comment. At this time of the meeting, we can open the audience, up to the audience. Again, no audience, so we can open it up to anyone on our electronic Zoom tuning in that would like to make any public comments. It can be about anything you want to talk about other than the weather. So we invite you in if anyone has a comment at this
Jim
time.
Lindsay has his hand raised.
Who does?
Jim Lindsay.
Okay. Can you, Jim, are you in? Are you let him in? Have you let him in?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Can, yes.
Mr. Chairman, I had a question. I dialed in tonight because I thought this application raised some curious matters that need resolution. I thought I heard earlier that the applicant had 69 feet of water frontage, but I believe 20 feet of that was the vacated street end. And looking at a Google Earth map of that area, there would appear to be a dock at the end of that vacated street end. And so is it fair to assume that that dock is owned by Mr. Nasser and was placed on the vacated street end by Mr. Nasser? And if so, the question that I had as I was reviewing the application is why is he requesting another dock when he may already have 2 docks? So it would seem appropriate to obtain clarification from the city as to who owns the vacated street and whether a dock is permitted on that 20-foot strip of land if the property is still owned by the city. I noticed that in the survey, the legal description was included in Mr. Nasser's property.
Cindy, do you want to address that as to, I think for what you worked through, you're familiar with the vacated portion and what that means for Jim?
Yes, I can try to answer some of those questions. According to the survey, he has 1 dock. According to, when you look on the aerial views, those are done in layers. The Allegan County GIS and our GIS, they're done in layers. And you will see you might have a property layer showing the aerial photo. And then on top of that would be the layer of where the parcels are. And the closer you get to the curve of the earth or the edge of where those are done, those layers don't always line up exactly. And let's look at this one. Half of that vacated street went to lot 10. Let's see. And that dock may be on the half that went to lot, I'm looking at the wrong thing here. Oh, it doesn't show on this aerial survey, but
You know, the way I see this one here, I mean, I see that, this is the property and there's the dock that we're dealing with, I believe, and I don't see a dock that, on
Well-
this one, but I don't know how old this is, see?
Well, this is,
Depends on Google Earth too.
this I think is the more current. Google Earth is at least 2016. Because I confirmed that with my house. It shows my house as it was under construction. Google Earth is quite out of date. So there, at that point in time, there probably was 2 docks there because it was a road end, but I'm not sure there's 2 docks there now. If there are,
This doesn't show it.
it should not be.
I don't see it on, this is his dock, right?
Yeah.
There's nothing south, is that south?
So the answer to Mr. Lindsay's question, I think, is that the current situation, the evidence we have only shows 1 dock in the center of the lot. And I also, Cindy, this is a question for you. I think docks cannot be built within the side setback area of the land to which they're attached.
they just can't interfere with the riparian rights of the neighbor.
Well, under major construction, it says
Well,
that.
it's not major. This
So
is
if it was
minor.
major construction, they cannot.
Right.
If it's minor, they just can't interfere with other people's rights.
But you could, what you're saying with minor, it could be within the side yard setback, but as long as it doesn't interfere with the riparian angle, what we're coming out of that, right? Major, no, but yeah.
So you could not, even if your dock was at the edge of your property, you couldn't dock your boat on the outside of that in front of your neighbor's property.
So that would be the riparian, okay.
Not
May-
legally.
May I just ask one more question?
Go ahead, Jim.
So Google Earth Pro has the ability to do time and date stamped aerial photographs. And I have one dated March 18th, 2021. And it confirms the existence of a dock at the street end. So I'll just ask my question again. who owns that dock? And does the city still own the vacated street? Do they still retain legal title to that street?
Using actually Google Earth as opposed to like Google Maps,
Yeah.
Not when it's.
right?
Well, if-
Am I asking you, excuse me, Jim, you're looking at Google Earth as the, let's say the downloaded app as opposed to just a Google map, right?
There are two versions of Google Earth.
Yeah,
There's the one available to everyone, and then there's a version available to professionals like engineers and land surveyors, and that's called Google Earth Pro.
yes.
And Google Earth Pro has multiple images. Every time satellites go overhead, there are images taken, and you can also import data sets into Google Earth Pro to get date and time-stamped images. And I have an image dated March 18th, 2021, not quite a year ago, that shows a dock at that street end. So my question is, does Mr. Nasser own that dock, since the property appears to be in his legal description?
Good question. I don't see his representative
But
on the
it
screen.
depends. I go back to Jim's comment there. The city does not own that property. Is that correct, Cindy?
It owns underneath that property, but the owners actually have control of that property, and it counts toward their lot area and width.
So they can build on it.
They can
If it's
build on it if it
built
doesn't have.
within the
if
setbacks.
There's not a reserved easement for utilities. I don't think at that point of the vacated Lakeview Court that there are any underground utilities there that the city retained an easement for. So if you didn't retain an easement, you can use that, you can build in that area.
So it would
And he could've-
depend on which half of the abandoned Lakeview
Right,
Court the
exactly.
dock was on, because it could be on the property to the north, or it could be on Mr. Nasser's property.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the dividing
It
line.
could be
Well-
on Kings or it could be on,
Yeah.
Well, and then I'll just ask one more question about setbacks. When you apply the setback requirement to either half of the lot, should any dock have been built at all anywhere in that area?
Well, I'll just answer that with, we did not explore those issues in preparation for this variance, but we could do that if you submit me a copy of your image and what the questions are.
I'll be happy to do that. I was just curious. I mean, I know there have been issues with property owners on our side of the river and how many docks they think they are entitled to. And it's just a question I had as I was reviewing the application.
Yeah, we did not really explore that about the ownership of that dock. So just send me a copy of the image and I'll see if I can answer those questions.
Will do.
okay. Thanks, Jim, for your questions. And while it's a good question because it gets confusing, not related to what we're asked to decide here tonight is that sense, but there was already in one, but it's a good question.
Mhm.
Besides that, now I know who to talk to when I want the real Google Earth info.
Amen.
We have another person with their hand raised.
Okay. Who is that?
Heather?
Scheller?
S. Schiller.
Steve or is it Scheller?
Yes, it's Steve Scheller, but I'm not Steve. I'm Maureen, his wife. I'm using his phone. I just have a question that I've thought about listening to this hearing on the variance, and a concern that I would like to see addressed when you were putting in the notes that perhaps other landowners have more docks than they're allowed. but they have that because they didn't go through the proper steps to get a variance. So it seems like then that is just allowed. So if you want to do something, but you don't want to be told no, it's just probably better to do it than to bring it before the council to get the appropriate approval.
We following, your question is,
My question is, if this
You-
person that's wanting this extra dock never applied for a variance, he could possibly be like some of the other people who just thought, I'm just gonna put up a dock and not ask, and then I can't be denied. And then, is that just allowed?
well, I guess, yeah, I think I can answer that or try, and Cindy can double check me. In this case, it was really caught because of the Eagle permit that came in front of our city. And that raised the question that this is not allowed under the city ordinance, where Eagle may have not had a problem with the distance or the riparian rights and things on their side, but it came in front of the city, and the city's red flagged it and said, you are only allowed one dock per lot. So that's how this one was, triggered. Then had to ask the applicant if they want to go for a variance to get a second dock, and that's where we're at tonight. I think your other side is if people just go do something illegally, and then, as they always say, beg for forgiveness type of thing later, that happens. And sometimes we're not very good at administering those violations, and sometimes we are. So it would be up to the city to, when that happens, to go back, and if it's a true violation, to take their action.
I think Eagle would take action if they did it.
Well, they
without-
do their own too. Yeah. Well, the Eagle would, yeah, it's gotta have, they gotta have your city approval. You can't go through Eagle without city approval.
So am I hearing it would be fairly difficult to build a dock without
Yes.
city approval because you have,
Unless you built it yourself.
so you would almost have to build it yourself.
Yeah, if
otherwise
you
Eagle
called
would
in a
be involved.
contractor, the contractor's got to get permits, but if you
Gotcha.
build it yourself,
Yeah, and in
There's
general,
no mean fee.
you have to go through the Eagle GNR, to build anything on the water anyway. So that's where it's a double-sided thing.
Yeah, double check.
There's a double check here.
And if you
Unless
build-
you own your own company that builds the dock.
Well, you wouldn't stay in business very long if you were building without permits.
Yeah, that marina companies, they know they got to have permits.
Yeah.
So, unless, but basically, they know they have to have the Eagle permit, number one, and then any local municipality that should take part of it about, so. Does that answer your question?
It answers the question. It doesn't really satisfy my question, but
And
because it appears that docks are being built without permits. And then nothing happens and no one investigates that.
if they have specific examples of that, Cindy, what should they do? Forward that to you with some supporting evidence?
Yeah, you can let me know, or you can go to the Eagle website, My Waters, and search for permits there and see if they did get a permit or not, and when the permit was issued.
And if
If-
they find that there was no permit issued, what should they do?
They should start with a complaint to Eagle because they have much stronger enforcement capabilities than the city does.
But does Eagle monitor like, how did Eagle get involved with the current person that is asking for the variant as opposed to somebody that just builds their own dock?
Their contractor asked Eagle for a permit. They sent the permit application to me for review.
Mhm.
No, they could not get a second dock. So Eagle told the contractor, no, you cannot have a second dock.
Okay,
And it's not unusual for a contractor to start with Eagle because most generally, they're tougher than the cities or the local ordinances, most generally. Because there's a lot to go through to meet those standards. So they like to get that go sign or at least high sign before they go to the next step.
Mhm.
And I'd just like to underscore, I don't think any of us were saying that we know for a fact that the folks on this map who have 2 docks obtained them illegally. They could be grandfathered in. Those folks could have had 2 lots at one time. We don't know
The street end
for a
or,
fact.
yeah,
We're
we
just
don't,
guessing.
yeah.
That's a possibility. I don't know that it's true.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Okay. Anyone else? One more time, any more public comments before we adjourn? Okay, then I would go to any ZBA comments for this evening. No, you guys. I would like to thank you very much for all your efforts to paying attention to this and coming out tonight and working through this. Cindy, thanks for your effort, and we'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy.
Thank you, guys.
Okay.